Good evening, everybody. Well, I hope y'all are doing all right. I'm doing swell. Thought we'd talk about Grand Lake a little bit. Gotten home, kind of gotten settled down a little bit, back to reality, and found me a good quiet time here this evening. I've been super busy last couple of days, but we can talk about how I caught them over Grand Lake this week, and I think you're going to like it a lot. It is old school. It's a classic, just old school, hard fishing. I'm super proud of this tournament. It's one of the best tournaments I've fished in a while. Just had great execution all 3 days. Great confidence. Just stayed on track all weekend. Cold every day, and man, you just can't ask for any more than that. I didn't lose any key fish. Nothing that would change the outcome. Everything just played out right. Each day's game plan like clockwork. And it's not often that happens in a tournament, but it really did this time. And I'll tell you, the Grand was fishing extremely tough. Now, it's been just throttled over the last 2 months with championship tournaments and giant tournaments and just hammered. I mean, hammered. And on top of that, the local guy there that ended up winning the tournament, Brandon, had told me that the lake was really just now coming out of turnover. So a lot of the water's messed up, and I could tell that. I've got a really nasty scum line all the way around my boat, and you'd pull in some places, and the water's just all yucky looking. And it was kind of starting to clean up by the end of the week, and you could tell the fishing was starting to improve a little bit. So, but super tough. I got to spend 2 days pre-fishing. Spent a lot of time. Last year when I fished the national championship over there, I kind of didn't do enough research on finding other bites out there. Maybe something that was going on that would kind of blow the tournament open. And I kind of settled into my old way of fishing over there. Thought that would get me through, and it didn't work. And I really regretted not spending more time pre-fishing, trying to find something away from the area I spent this tournament. And so I kind of concentrated on trying to figure something else out and realized really quick that was not going to happen. There just was really very minimal bite all over the lake. And so I fell back to all 3 of the winners were all right there together. We were all just swapping water all 3 days and just staying right there close to the takeoff there in Wolf Creek and that sailboat bridge area, Red 11, just that area right there. And, it's well known. There's so many tournaments out of all that area. There's tons of fish around there. And so I spent a little time there pre-fishing, realized real quick I could get bit. And I thought, well, at least I can catch a limit and we'll just go from there. So that's what I did. I stayed close. I probably didn't burn over 10 gallons of gas in 3 days. Would start there close and catch me a limit, and then I'd venture out and cull fish out in some other areas that weren't what I would call release fish. When I'd go to these other docks and these other areas, they were a lot better looking fish. They were healthier, thicker. You could tell these were resident fish that lived in this other creek, and so I would cull out with those. So that was kind of how I laid my game plan out, and it revolved around 2 baits, but actually 4 baits, but they're all the same. There's 2 styles of baits, but in different colors of the same thing. So I'm gonna walk you through all those. My pattern revolved around a jig and a crankbait. I could not get a bite on a spinnerbait to speak of, or a buzz bait or anything like that. The only thing I could get any kind of bites on was a small crankbait and a jig. So going into the tournament, the 4 baits I'll talk about the baits first, and then I'm gonna talk about how I was fishing those and where I was fishing those. The 4 baits, and my primary bait was a brown bucktail jig. Now this is the actual jig, the last one I had in the tournament, so you can tell how, I mean, this thing is, look at this poor jig. That's what a jig should look like when you've had a good tournament. So this is the last one I had. I was down to my last one, my last two old school pork frogs, but just a brown bucktail jig, 3/8 ounce with a brown old school Uncle Josh number 11 pork frog. I had to, now this one's missing the piece of worm. It's gotten torn off, but I was putting a piece of worm on the shank, and that's the jig right there. And I was fishing that around docks with anywhere from 3 feet on the back side to 8 to 12 on the front side of the docks. That kind of depth were the best ones. And if they had some brush, logs, trash underneath them, it was even better. So that was my first bait, just a brown 3/8 ounce bucktail with a brown 11 frog. The second bait that really I started throwing this bait into the second day, and they really bit this bait better in the afternoons. I could catch a limit on the brown one early and some good ones, but in the afternoons, for some reason, I went to an olive one. I went to the olive late in the second day because I was getting down to my last two brown jigs, and I thought, man, I need to. You'd think a guy that builds jigs would have had more than, half a dozen of them, but I didn't. So I put on this olive one. In the afternoon of the second day, I ended up culling 3 or 4 fish with an olive, same 3/8 ounce bucktail, brown number 11 pork frog on there, and they really liked this in the afternoon. And so the second day and the last day, in the afternoons, I would go to this green jig, and they liked it, seemed to like it better. I don't know the difference, but either way, I had both of these on. I was taking that old pork frog, kind of splitting the legs in the middle, as you can see right there, to give it a little more action. And that was my 2 jigs that I was using. I was using them on 6.5 foot medium heavy bait caster with 15-pound Red Label fluorocarbon line. I still like the fluorocarbon on my jigs. It's just kind of a habit I gotten into. It's about the only thing I throw for fluoro on, but that's what I was using on those. Old school. The third one, and now this is a bait, this is a bait that old Randy's talked about a whole lot over there. And sometimes when he's posted those videos, I was like, man, some stuff you don't need to be sharing. People don't need to know this, but the old Rebel Humpy. And this was my primary crankbait for the 2 days. This crawdad colored one like this right here, a Rebel Humpy. This is a wonderful bait. I was fishing in between the docks most of the time. Like if I'd have a stretch of bank, or like the second day I had one fish. I was like, I need to finish the limit. I picked this thing up, got busy with it, caught me a limit real quick. The first day and the second day, 2 of the bass I weighed each one of those days came on a Rebel Humpy crankbait, along with some other keepers. I was getting the cull each day, but this old crawdad. This bait it's really good in that old shallow rock and wood. It hunts really well. It just bumps around those rocks and jumps around. And it's a good, easy fishing bait. And those bass just really like it. I think it's different looking than what they've seen all the time. So I was throwing this crawdad colored one, and I was backing it up with kind of a chartreuse crawdad. It had a black back, chartreuse sides, orange belly. The cloudy day, they seemed to like this one a little bit better. The second day, it was rainy all day long. I did catch quite a few more on this color that day, but it was probably a draw between the two. Just fishing it around rock, pockets, wood, boat ramps. I caught one that I weighed the second day off a boat ramp on this bait. But just the old Rebel Humpy. So Randy knows what he's talking about on this bait. It's an old school favorite of mine, has been all my life. It is a fish catcher. So those are the 4 baits I was fishing with. And, I just fished them hard. Oop, knocked the rod over. You lean a rod up against your boat, you're just gonna wait. It's just gonna fall over. So, but anyway, that's the 4 baits I was fishing with through the entire 3 days of the tournament. I just stayed focused on those 3. Again, I was flipping docks with that jig, and it was ultra slow. I don't think many people were catching any fish on a jig to speak of other than myself. And I really think it had a lot to do with that bucktail jig. You know, I talk about that jig all the time. It's got a really subtle action. It's not kind of invasive. It's not something the bass have seen a lot. And it just really, and I have just this immense amount of confidence in that bucktail jig. The other thing that I'm trying to get back to using the pork frogs more. I've always used the plastic ones and had great luck with them things. I haven't really had any complaints with them. But over the last month or two, I happened into a lot of pork frogs, and I'm super glad to have a good set of them now to work with. And I'm just going to tell you, I forgot just how amazing a good pork frog looks in the water. The fluid action of those legs, even in the water was in the 60s, low 60s, it moves naturally because it's something made from something natural. Just the flow of the legs and the flow of it with that bucktail on that jig, it just said, I'm real. And I really feel like that had a lot to do with getting more bites on a jig. It just was the right combination. I was cutting those legs up between. I was also scraping the flat legs out so that they were real thin. Man, I mean, just the slightest movement, those legs they would move. And then I was fishing that jig ultra slow. I was being very precise on these docks. The rows of docks that I picked to fish, I would fish the backside, the sides, the front. Your bites could be anywhere. I was just using surgical precision of taking that dock apart, pitching into the boat stalls, pitching underneath the lifts, skipping that jig into every dark spot, and just slowly picking those docks apart. And as each day went on, I began to understand which ones had some extra brush. Watching for cables hanging off the docks where you knew there would be a brush pile hanging there. Paying attention to anything that might have washed in. One of the best docks I had, an old log had kind of washed in behind it, and you could see it just a little bit down in the water, and that log went up underneath that boat dock. And I caught 2 big fish off that one log that was kind of running underneath the backside of that dock. On a dock that I literally had to lay down on the deck of my boat, pull my boat underneath these cables, get into an open space in behind there, got my boat situated on the backside of that dock where I know nobody was fishing. And then I just sat there and fish. I would make the same cast over and over again. You'd think I was sitting back there crappie fishing. Spent 30 minutes behind one dock, not moving the boat, just sitting there in one spot, just kind of fan pitching all behind that dock. There was some brush and rock, that log, until I got a bite. And lots of times, it's the little things that make so much difference. And you could not move that jig. You had to get it on a piece of cover and literally like pull it up to a piece of brush or up on one of them limbs of that log and just tighten it up on there. And the longer you could sit there and just hold that jig in position on something, like it's pulled up there and it's just sitting there. Those fish were sitting there watching that. I don't know how many times I'm sitting there, I'm just holding my jig up against a piece of limb, or I finally pull it over and pull it up to the next one. I'm just painfully slow. And all of a sudden, that limb would move. That fish would pick that off. You'd never feel a bite. You would just be sitting there holding it on a piece of brush, and you'd feel it just, and it'd be a good fish. I had so many bites like this week where I'm just sitting there holding it up against something. 2 of my best fish on the crankbait, I was actually hung up, and I'm sitting there popping my line, trying to get my bait to come undone. Finally pop it loose, hook. 2 of the fish I caught like that on a crankbait. They were sitting there watching that bait hung up, waiting for something to happen. So the key to me getting as many bites as I did each day was just precision patience, just waiting for that bite, knowing I had that bait right where it needed to be and waiting for him to pick it up. It's hard to do, but just sticking with it, saying, just go to the next dock and do the same thing and not get a bite. Go to the next dock, do the same thing, not get a bite. I had one row of docks in one little creek there. There were 8 docks there. I was spending about 3.5 hours each day fishing those 8 docks. That's how long I would spend on them. And out of the 8 docks each day, I might get 2 or 3 bites off 1 or 2 docks. The last day of the tournament, I caught 2 off one dock, 1 off another dock, and 1 off at one of the others. So the other 4 docks, I didn't ever get a bite. So you just grind and grind. You got to go to the next one, fish it the same way. But I was confident in the baits I was throwing, confident in the pattern that I had. I knew I needed docks that had a little bit deeper water on the backside. Normally I prefer to fish the shallowest docks on the backside available. So if it's got 6 inches to 1.5 feet on the backside, that's what I want. But this tournament, you needed to have 3-4 feet of water on the backside of that dock, up to 12 on the front side. Those were the best docks. Not necessarily a bluff line, but a little bit steep, 45-degree bank, that there was a little bit of water there under that dock to hold those fish. So that's the kind of places I caught them. I think the first day I caught 7 or 8 keepers. Second day I caught 9 keepers. Third day I think I caught 11 or 12 keepers. Just fishing those docks that way, and then fishing a crankbait in between the docks. If I had a longer section in between the docks, I would really saturate that area with that little Rebel crankbait. Or if there was a boat ramp there behind the dock or close to that dock on that bank, I would always fish every one of those with that crankbait. Or little nooks. I caught a couple key fish in a pocket that was on the bank and maybe a cove. I'd always fish that crankbait in there, throwing up around any wood, lay downs, anything that was there. I'd fish that crankbait around that kind of stuff. All those areas were quite shallow. Just throwing that crankbait. That's what I do in between the docks till the next dock. Kind of standard pattern. And one other thing that I noticed this tournament, I'm going to give you a real piece of juice right here. And this is something I've been doing on boat docks for the last year or two. And, it's all about pressure on our lakes these days. And what I've noticed is if you watch everybody, they fish docks from the outside into the bank. And this week, I spent a lot of my time fishing from the bank outward. So I would get in behind a dock. Even though I was catching quite a few fish on the front of the dock, I was catching them from fishing from the back side of the dock. So it's kind of like pulling up on a point, throwing out deep and bringing your bait back in. It also makes it much easier to really finesse that bait back. But I really think those fish like that different presentation. I would literally troll up, get in behind the dock, and then start fishing my way out as compared to fishing my way in sometimes. And those key docks that had the deeper water on the front, I caught a lot of my bass fishing what you would say backwards of how I would catch those. Even getting up on the bank, pitching up behind the docks, instead of pitching long ways, sideways beside it, I'd get behind it and pitch up to the back side of the dock and then work it back to the boat, even though the boat was sitting in 0 feet of water. You need to remember that on your local lakes. You've really got to start paying attention to how everyone else approaches these pieces of cover, what you're fishing, and begin to come at it at a different angle. That's some juice for you. You need to really pay attention to that. It will help you catch more fish. I don't care what kind of cover it is. Figure out the direction that nobody's coming at it. You'll catch a lot more fish that way. It really helped me catch some fish this week. It was a great event. I'm totally satisfied with my place. I know I fished as good a tournament as I could fish. I also know when it comes to my style of fishing, conventional fishing, I fished a good tournament. I fished at the top of my game in that tournament, and that's not me bragging. I'm super proud of this event and how I fished it and how it all played out. So, you know, it's been a fabulous couple of weeks, and I can't thank all of you enough. I'm truthfully so humbled by everyone's comments, your just how much you support me, how much you have faith that I can do things. You don't know how much it helps me. It's so nice to get up and read those. You know, I'd get up in the mornings and read the comments on my Facebook or my YouTube, and it was really a confidence booster for me this week. It also, it makes second places feel like I'm a winner, and y'all make all that happen, and I can't thank all of you enough. This has made tournament fishing so special for me. I've always loved this sport, and sharing all this on YouTube and having all y'all, my viewers, pay attention, follow along, and appreciate what I'm trying to do and support me the way you have. I can't thank you enough. It makes my day. It really makes it worth it. It makes it so much better. And I'm looking forward to sharing the Nationals experience this year, and going to try to pursue some other things this year, maybe kind of reach for the stars a little bit. And I may be looking for some of y'all's support on this. So be watching for that. See if we can't. Maybe, you know, I'd love just one time to take this old Ranger boat through the Bassmasters Classic. And I know that's a far-fetched dream out there in the sky, but, you know, you won't land on a star if you don't try shooting for one. So let's just keep trying. But again, I can't thank all of you enough. I appreciate you following along with me this week. And I hope that some of what I just showed you there will help you catch more fish. Also, all those jigs were Arkansas Custom Tackle bucktail jig. I talk about them all the time. So many of you have ordered jigs from me, but if anybody's interested in any of those, just reach out. Be glad to make you some. Again, so many of you already supported me. I hate even plugging that, but I better throw it in there just in case. So hope that helps you. You need to get out and get to fishing. The weather, the water temps, everything's just now getting right. I know it's Christmas time. There's a lot going on, but get out and go fishing. Enjoy what we got out there. Fishing is still great. I don't care what they say. I don't care what's out there. Fishing is great. The people in fishing are great. And don't get fooled. Come on out. Till next time. We'll see y'all later.